the real beginning of financial chaos, and nobody notices it. Financial collapse doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with warning sirens or flashing lights. It starts quietly, in a moment so ordinary, you don't even register it as significant. A small decision, a minor compromise, a single instance where you choose convenience over discipline, where you justify something you know you shouldn't do, where you tell yourself it's just this once. And in that moment, nothing dramatic happens. Your life continues. Your bank account doesn't immediately implode. Everything feels fine, but something has shifted. A line has been crossed, and what you don't realize is that you've just taken the first step down a path that leads to chaos. Because financial destruction isn't a single catastrophic event. It's a series of small moments that compound over time until the damage becomes undeniable. And by then, you're so deep in the pattern that getting out feels impossible. Here's what makes this so insidious. The beginning of financial chaos looks like normal life. It looks like everyone else's decisions. It feels justified, rational, even responsible. You're not doing anything obviously reckless. You're not gambling your savings or making wild investments. You're just living, just managing, just getting by. But beneath the surface, something fundamental has gone wrong. And because it's invisible, because it doesn't feel like a crisis, you keep going. You keep making the same types of decisions. You keep following the same patterns. And with each repetition, the chaos grows. The foundation weakens. The margin for error shrinks. Until one day, something breaks. And when it does, you look back trying to figure out where it all went wrong. And you can't find a single moment, because it wasn't a moment. It was 1,000 moments, and they all started with one. Let me tell you what that first moment usually looks like. It's the moment you spend money you don't have. Not in a dramatic way. Not by taking out a massive loan or maxing out credit cards in one night, but in a small, seemingly reasonable way. You use a credit card for something you can't quite afford right now, telling yourself you'll pay it off next month. You take a small loan for something that feels necessary. You dip into savings for something that feels justified. You let a bill slide because you're a little short this month. In that moment, you've made a choice. You've prioritized present desire over future stability. You've introduced debt into your life. You've broken the fundamental rule of financial health. Only spend what you have. And once you've broken it once, it becomes easier to break it again. Here's why that first compromise is so dangerous. It changes your relationship with money. Before, there was a hard boundary. You either had the money or you didn't. If you didn't, you couldn't buy it. Simple, clear. But the moment you borrow, the moment you spend money you don't have, that boundary dissolves. Suddenly, having the money now isn't the requirement. The requirement becomes being able to pay it back eventually. And that's a much softer boundary, a much more flexible boundary, a boundary that can be pushed and stretched and rationalized until it barely exists at all. And once you've crossed it, once you've proven to yourself that you can spend money you don't have and survive, you'll do it again and again, until debt isn't an emergency measure. It's a lifestyle. Let's talk about what happens next. That first debt creates a new obligation, a payment, and that payment reduces your available income every month, which makes you a little tighter financially, which makes it a little harder to cover your expenses, which makes it more likely that you'll need to borrow again. And so you do, a little more, for something else that feels necessary. And now you have two payments, two obligations, less flexibility, more pressure, and the cycle continues. Each new debt makes your financial situation tighter, which creates the conditions that make you need more debt. And with each iteration, the problem gets worse. The payments get higher, the flexibility gets lower, the stress gets greater, and the way out gets harder to see. But here's what most people miss. The debt itself isn't the beginning, it's the symptom. The real beginning is the moment you started living beyond your means, the moment your expenses exceeded your income, the moment you decided that what you wanted was more important than what you could afford. And that moment might have happened long before you took on any debt. It might have happened when you chose an apartment that stretched your budget, when you bought a car with a payment that was just barely manageable, when you adopted a lifestyle that required every dollar you earned. Because once your expenses equal your income, you have zero margin, zero buffer, zero room for error. And life is full of errors, unexpected expenses, emergencies, changes. And when you have no margin, those normal life events become crises. And crises require solutions. And the easiest solution is always debt. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people's financial chaos begins with a series of choices that felt reasonable at the time. They got the job, they calculated what they could afford, and they built a life right up to that limit. They didn't think of themselves as living beyond their means because technically they could cover their bills. But covering your bills isn't financial health, it's financial fragility. Because if covering your bills requires 100% of your income, what happens when your income drops? What happens when an expense increases? What happens when something unexpected occurs? You can't absorb it. You have no cushion. So you borrow. And that's when the chaos actually becomes visible. But it started much earlier. It started when you built a life with zero margin for error. Let's talk about the psychological component. There's a moment in most people's financial journey where they make a choice that conflicts with their values. They know they should save. They know they should live within their means. They know they should be building a foundation, but they don't. They spend instead. They justify instead. They rationalize instead. And in that moment of cognitive dissonance, something shifts. They stop seeing themselves as someone who makes good financial decisions. They start seeing themselves as someone who struggles with money, someone who can't get ahead, someone for whom financial stability is always just out of reach. And that identity becomes self-fulfilling. Because if you see yourself as bad with money, you'll make decisions that confirm that belief. You'll spend when you shouldn't. You'll avoid looking at your accounts. You'll give up on planning because what's the point? And the chaos deepens. Here's what the beginning of chaos feels like from the inside. It feels like stress that never quite goes away. It feels like a low-level anxiety about money that's always humming in the background. It feels like avoiding certain conversations, certain mail, certain thoughts. It feels like telling yourself you'll deal with it later. It feels like hoping things work out. It feels like getting through this month and worrying about next month when it comes. It doesn't feel like disaster. It feels like management. But what you're managing isn't your money. It's your avoidance. You're managing your ability to not think about the problem. And every day you spend not thinking about it, the problem grows. Now let's talk about the specific moments where financial chaos typically begins. For many people, it's the transition to independence, moving out, taking on rent, managing bills for the first time, and making the mistake of assuming they can afford everything they want because they have income. They sign a lease they can barely afford. They buy furniture on credit. They adopt a lifestyle that matches their income without building any buffer. And they're fine for a while, until they're not, until the car breaks down, until they lose a job, until something happens that their zero-margin life can't absorb. And then the chaos begins. For others, it's a major life change. Marriage, kids, a new house. These are supposed to be positive events, but they come with costs. And if you're not prepared for those costs, if you underestimate them or overestimate your ability to handle them, you end up stretched too thin. You end up spending more than you planned. You end up taking on more debt than you should. And suddenly your financial foundation is cracked. Not broken, not yet, but cracked. And cracks grow. For some, it's a slow drift. No single moment. Just a gradual increase in spending. A lifestyle that inflates over time. Small upgrades that seem harmless. A nicer phone. A streaming service. A gym membership. Better restaurants. Better clothes. None of it dramatic. All of it adding up. And one day you realize you're spending everything you make. There's nothing left over. No savings. No progress. Just an endless cycle of earning and spending. And you don't know how it happened because you can't point to one bad decision. It was 1,000 small ones. Here's the pattern that underlies all of these scenarios. The beginning of financial chaos is always the moment you prioritize short-term comfort over long-term stability. It's always the moment you choose what feels good now over what serves you later. It's always the moment you break the discipline that keeps you safe. And the reason it's so hard to see is that short-term comfort is immediately rewarding. It feels good. It reduces discomfort. It solves the immediate problem. But long-term stability is abstract. It's future-focused. It doesn't feel like anything right now. So when you're forced to choose between them, Comfort wins. Every time. Unless you've trained yourself to think differently. Unless you've built the mental muscle to delay gratification. Unless you've connected your present choices to your future outcomes in a way that's emotionally real. Let's get specific about what this looks like in practice. The beginning of financial chaos might be the first time you carry a credit card balance, the first time you take a payday loan, the first time you skip a payment, the first time you ignore a bill, the first time you lie to yourself about your financial situation, the first time you avoid checking your bank account because you don't want to know, the first time you say yes to something you know you should say no to, the first time you prioritize appearance over reality, the first time you choose to fit in instead of doing what's right for your financial health. Any of these moments can be the beginning, and all of them share one thing. They're moments where awareness is replaced by avoidance. Here's why awareness matters so much. When you're aware of your financial situation, when you're facing reality honestly, you can make conscious choices. You can evaluate trade-offs. You can decide whether something is worth the cost. But when you avoid awareness, when you stop looking honestly at your situation, you lose the ability to make good decisions. You start operating on autopilot, on emotion, on hope. And hope is not a financial strategy. Hope doesn't pay bills. Hope doesn't build savings. Hope doesn't protect you from chaos. Only awareness and action do that. And the moment you choose avoidance over awareness, you've started down the path to chaos. So what do you do if you recognize yourself in this? If you realize you're already on that path, first you stop. You stop the behavior that's moving you in the wrong direction. You stop spending money you don't have. You stop avoiding your financial reality. You stop telling yourself it'll work out somehow, because it won't. Not on its own. Not without intervention. The momentum is carrying you toward chaos, and stopping requires an active decision to do something different. Second, you look. You face your situation honestly. You add up the debt. You calculate the payments. You list the expenses. You see where you actually are, not where you wish you were. This is uncomfortable. This is painful. This is the moment most people avoid because it forces them to confront how bad things have gotten. But you can't fix what you won't face. And the longer you wait, the worse it gets. So you look. Fully. Honestly. Without judgment. Just data. Just reality. Third, you decide. You decide this is where it ends. This is where the pattern breaks. This is where you stop letting momentum carry you and start steering your own course. You decide that short-term comfort is no longer worth long-term chaos. You decide that awareness is more important than avoidance. You decide that you're worth the effort it takes to build financial stability. And that decision, that commitment, is the foundation for everything that comes next. Fourth, you plan. You create a realistic budget. You identify what you can cut. You figure out how to increase the gap between income and expenses. You prioritize debt payoff. You build a small emergency fund. You set boundaries. You make rules for yourself. You create systems that prevent the old patterns from recurring. This doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be real. It has to be based on your actual numbers, your actual situation, your actual capacity. Not what you wish, not what should be. What is? Fifth, you execute. You follow the plan. You make the hard choices. You say no to things you want. You endure the discomfort of changing behavior. You stay aware. You stay disciplined. You stay committed. Even when it's hard. Even when you want to quit. Even when the progress feels too slow. Because this is how you stop the chaos. Not by hoping. Not by wishing. By doing. By making different choices every single day until those choices become your new normal. Here's what you need to understand. Financial chaos isn't inevitable. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you participate in through your choices. And that means you have power. You can choose differently. You can break the pattern. You can stop the momentum. But only if you see it. Only if you're willing to face it. Only if you're committed to doing something about it. Because the alternative is letting it continue. Letting it grow. Letting it consume more and more of your life until financial stress is your constant companion, and stability feels like a fantasy. And you don't have to live that way. You don't have to accept that reality. You can choose something different. Starting right now. The real beginning of financial chaos is the moment you stop paying attention. The moment you choose comfort over consciousness. the moment you break the discipline that keeps you safe. And the end of financial chaos is the moment you reverse those choices, the moment you become aware, the moment you choose long-term stability over short-term ease, the moment you commit to building something different. That's the moment everything changes. That's the moment the chaos stops growing and starts shrinking. That's the moment you take back control of your financial life. And that moment is available to you right now. The question is whether you'll take it. Where did your financial chaos begin? And what are you going to do about it?